Part 1: The Prison of Small Thoughts. What if the only thing holding you back was not the world, not your family, not your past, but the thoughts inside your own head? Ethan stared at the cracked ceiling of his small apartment. To the world, he was invisible. A 25-year-old man with a dead-end job, no savings, and no spark in his eyes. But the truth was darker. Ethan did not just live in poverty. He lived in a prison of his own making. Every morning, as he brushed his teeth, he whispered to himself, "I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. I'm just average." These words were not just passing thoughts. They were chains. Invisible, heavy, unbreakable. At least that's what he believed. The strange thing was, Ethan had dreams. Big ones. He once wanted to start a business, to write a book, to inspire others with his words. But each time he dared to imagine it, another voice in his head laughed. "Who do you think you are? People like you don't succeed. Stay small. Stay safe." And so he stayed small. His days were a cycle of routine. Wake up late, drag himself to work at a dusty bookstore, come home tired, scroll on his phone, and sleep with regret pressed against his chest. He told himself this was his fate. Some people were born for greatness. Others were meant to survive quietly. He belonged to the second group. But something strange began happening one night. As he lay in bed, half asleep, he dreamt of standing in front of a mirror. His reflection did not look like him. This version was taller, stronger, eyes glowing with fire. The reflection spoke, but its voice thundered inside Ethan's bones. "Your prison is not made of walls. It's made of thoughts. Change them and you will change your world." Ethan woke with his heart racing. Sweat soaked his shirt. The words burned in his mind like a prophecy. But as the morning came, doubt returned. It was just a dream. Nothing will change. Still, the seed had been planted. And like all seeds, once buried in the soil of the mind, it began to push, to stretch, to demand light. Seedling Learning Corner. Notice how Ethan keeps repeating phrases like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never make it." This is an example of negative self-talk, a pattern of thoughts that quietly shapes reality. In English, expressions like, "Who do you think you are?" show disbelief and doubt. They are rhetorical questions, questions not asked for answers but to express feelings. Think about this. If every day you tell yourself, "I can't," your actions will follow that belief. But if you say, "I will find a way," suddenly your behavior begins to shift toward solutions. This is why the story's theme is true. Our thoughts shape our reality. Speech balloon, your turn. Why do you think Ethan feels trapped even though there are no physical walls around him? Have you ever repeated negative thoughts to yourself like Ethan does? How did it affect your actions? Retell part of the story in your own words. What happened in Ethan's dream? Part 2: The Meeting with the Old Man. Sometimes the universe whispers. Sometimes it shouts. The question is, are you listening? Ethan's life would have continued the same: routine, regret, repetition. If not for a rainy evening that forced him into an unfamiliar cafe. The storm outside was violent, wind slamming against the windows like fists. The cafe was nearly empty, but in the corner sat an old man with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. Ethan ordered a coffee and sat near the window, but the old man suddenly spoke without looking up from his book. "You look heavy," he said. Ethan frowned. "Excuse me?" "Not your body," the old man chuckled, closing his book. "Your mind is carrying stones." The words struck Ethan like lightning. How could this stranger know? He remembered his dream, the reflection telling him his prison was made of thoughts. For a moment, he wondered if he was still dreaming. The old man leaned forward. "Tell me, young man, when you wake in the morning, what is the first thing you say to yourself?" Ethan hesitated, embarrassed. "That I'm tired, that nothing will change." The old man nodded slowly. "Exactly. And that is why nothing does change. Your thoughts are the soil. If the soil is poisoned, how can the seed grow?" Ethan's chest tightened. "But I can't control my thoughts. They just happen." The man smiled, eyes sharp as steel. "That's what weak men say. The truth is, your thoughts are not kings. They are servants. You can command them, but you have forgotten how. You believe every voice that speaks inside your skull, as if every whisper is truth. But most of those voices are lies you planted long ago. The words hit Ethan harder than any insult. Lies that meant his whole life. His belief that he was small, invisible, destined for nothing, was just a story he had been telling himself. "Let me give you a challenge," the old man continued. "For the next 7 days, write down every negative thought that enters your mind. Don't fight it, just write it. And then, beside each one, write its opposite. If the thought says, 'I am weak,' you write, 'I am strong.' If it says, 'I will fail,' you write, 'I will succeed.' Do this without skipping a day. You'll see what happens." Ethan laughed nervously. "You make it sound too simple." The old man's eyes gleamed. "Simple does not mean easy. The prison door is open, boy. The question is, will you walk out?" Before Ethan could reply, the man stood, placed some coins on the table, and walked into the storm. His figure vanished into the rain, leaving Ethan shaken, as if lightning had struck not outside, but inside his soul. For the first time in years, he felt something flicker in his chest. Not quite belief, not quite hope, but possibility. Seedling Learning Corner. In this part, the old man says, "Your thoughts are not kings. They are servants." This is a metaphor, a way of comparing two things that are not literally the same but share qualities. Here, the metaphor teaches that we can control our thoughts instead of obeying them blindly. Notice also the phrase, "The prison door is open." The question is, will you walk out? This is a rhetorical question meant to make Ethan think deeply. It doesn't need an answer because the meaning is clear. Freedom is possible if he chooses it. In English, when people want to emphasize contrast, they often use pairs like, "Simple does not mean easy." This structure is powerful in speeches and storytelling. Speech balloon, your turn. What did the old man ask Ethan to do for 7 days? Why did the old man call thoughts servants? Can you try making your own opposite thought? For example, if you often think, "I'm too slow," how would you write the opposite? Part 3, The Battle on Paper. The first war we fight is not with the world outside, but with the world inside. The next morning, Ethan woke earlier than usual. The old man's words echoed in his head, haunting him like a song he couldn't forget. On his desk sat a dusty notebook he hadn't touched in years. With a deep breath, he opened it and wrote across the top of the page, "Day 1, my thoughts." At first, it felt awkward, but soon, the whispers of his mind began to pour out like a broken faucet. "I'm not smart enough. I will never escape this life. People don't really respect me. I'm just wasting time." The more he wrote, the heavier he felt, as if he were dragging stones out of his chest and dropping them on the page. When the page was nearly full, he remembered the old man's instructions. Write the opposite. So next to each line, with shaking hands, Ethan wrote, "I am smart enough to learn. I can escape this life. People will respect me when I respect myself. I am using my time to grow." At first, the words felt fake, like trying on clothes that didn't fit. But strangely, something shifted inside him as he read them back. His heart didn't fully believe the new thoughts, but his soul leaned toward them like a plant turning toward the sun. The following days tested him. At work, in the bookstore, when customers ignored him or when his boss barked orders, the old whispers returned. "See? You're nobody." But this time, instead of sinking, Ethan silently repeated, "I am somebody. I am learning. I am growing." On the 3rd day, a small miracle happened. A woman entered the store, asking for a book on starting a business. Ethan, usually shy, found himself smiling and suggesting a title he had once read. She looked surprised and said, "You seem knowledgeable." "Thank you." Her words were simple, but to Ethan they were thunder. For the first time, reality had shifted, just a little, because his thoughts had shifted. That night, writing in his notebook, Ethan realized something powerful. His negative thoughts were not absolute truths. They were habits, and like all habits, they could be changed. But change was not easy. On the 6th night, after a long, exhausting day, he almost gave up. "What's the point?" he muttered, staring at the notebook. Yet, something in him refused to surrender. He remembered the old man's eyes, sharp and unyielding, and forced himself to write again. By the end of the 7th day, the notebook was heavy with battles. Old lies crossed out, new truths written beside them. It was messy, uneven, imperfect, but it was proof that he had fought, not with fists, but with words. And for the first time in his life, Ethan did not feel like a prisoner. He felt like a soldier. Seedling Learning Corner. Notice how Ethan's first attempt at writing positive thoughts felt fake. This reflects a common truth. The brain resists new beliefs at first. In English, we sometimes say trying on clothes that don't fit to describe something that feels uncomfortable or unnatural. This is an idiom, a phrase whose meaning is not literal but understood through culture. Another useful phrase is small miracle. It doesn't mean something supernatural, but rather an event that feels unexpectedly important, even if it's ordinary. For Ethan, one compliment was enough to feel like a miracle. The line, "The first war we fight is not with the world outside, but with the world inside," is an example of parallel structure, a technique in writing where phrases are balanced for rhythm and emphasis. This makes sentences more powerful and memorable. Speech balloon, your turn. What exercise did Ethan do for 7 days, and how did it affect him? Why did the woman's compliment feel like a small miracle? Try writing your own sentence in parallel structure. For example, "I will not fight with fear, I will fight with faith." Can you make one? Part 4, the mirror test. The scariest voice in the world is not the one that shouts at you. It's the one that whispers inside you. On the 8th day, Ethan stood in front of his bathroom mirror. His notebook lay open on the sink, filled with the battles of the past week. For a long moment, he stared at his reflection, the same tired eyes, the same ordinary face. Then he remembered the dream, the other version of himself, taller, stronger, eyes burning with fire. He whispered, almost afraid of the sound of his own voice, "I am not small." The reflection didn't change. His chest tightened with embarrassment. Felt ridiculous, like a child pretending to be a hero. But then he remembered the old man's words, "Your thoughts are not kings, they are servants." So he tried again, louder this time. "I am not small." The voice cracked, but it carried more weight. His reflection seemed to stare back with curiosity, as if testing him. By the 3rd attempt, he shouted, "I am not small." The words shook the walls. His heart raced, and for a fleeting second, he swore the reflection's eyes glowed, just like in his dream. From that day forward, the mirror became his battlefield. Every morning, he declared truths that his heart didn't fully believe yet. "I am capable. I deserve success. My future is bigger than my past." At first, the words felt hollow, but slowly something began to change. His shoulders straightened. His eyes didn't dart away in shame. His voice carried more certainty. It wasn't magic, it was repetition. Just as years of repeating, "I am small," had built his prison, now daily declarations were building a new foundation. But the old thoughts didn't surrender quietly. On the bus to work, Ethan heard them whisper again, "Look at you, shouting in the mirror like a fool. You'll never change." For a moment, doubt gnawed at him. Yet this time, instead of believing the lie, he smirked and answered out loud, "That's what you used to say." Not anymore. People on the bus looked at him strangely, but Ethan didn't care. For the first time, he realized he was no longer the prisoner listening to the whispers. He was the guard deciding which voices were allowed inside. That night, before bed, Ethan wrote in his notebook, "Today, I saw myself differently. Today, I was bigger than my thoughts." And as he closed the notebook, he felt it. Not hope, not possibility, but the first spark of belief. Seedling Learning Corner. In this part, Ethan uses affirmations like, "I am capable," and "I deserve success." These are examples of positive self-talk, powerful tools in English to replace negative thoughts. Notice the structure. They are short, simple, present tense sentences. This makes them stronger and easier for the brain to accept. The phrase, "the mirror became his battlefield," is a metaphor. The mirror is not really a battlefield, but it represents the place where Ethan fights his inner war. Similarly, his prison earlier in the story is also metaphorical, describing his limiting beliefs. Another interesting phrase is not hope, not possibility, but belief. This is an example of contrast and rhythm in writing, where the author builds tension by listing and then breaking expectations. Speech balloon, your turn. What new habit did Ethan create in front of the mirror? Why did the reflection feel like his battlefield? Try creating your own positive affirmation in English. For example, I am confident. What would yours be? Part 5, the weight of the past. Sometimes the heaviest chains are not made of iron, but of memory. Ethan's new routine gave him energy. The notebook, the mirror, the daily affirmations. They were slowly rewiring his mind. But there was still a shadow following him, silent and heavy. The past. One evening, while cleaning his apartment, Ethan found an old box under his bed. Inside were letters, school reports, and photographs. Each paper seemed to carry a ghost. His old teacher's note, Ethan has potential, but he never applies himself. A college rejection letter. We regret to inform you. A photograph of his ex-girlfriend, who had once told him he was too small for her big dreams. Ethan sat on the floor, surrounded by evidence of failure. His chest grew tight, his throat dry. The old voices returned stronger than ever. See? You were never enough. You wasted your chances. You're too late. Tears blurred his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he felt himself sinking back into the old prison. The affirmations seemed weak compared to the sharp edges of memory. But then, another voice surfaced, faint but steady. It was the memory of the old man in the cafe. Memories are meant to guide us, not to weigh us down. Ethan wiped his tears. He picked up the photograph of his ex, stared at it for a long moment, and whispered, "You don't define me anymore." He tore it in half. He opened the rejection letter, breathed deeply, and whispered, "This was the end of one path, not the end of me." He tore it too. Piece by piece, he began destroying the contents of the box, not out of anger but out of release. With each rip of paper, he felt lighter. The ghosts of the past faded into silence. When the box was empty, Ethan wrote in his notebook, "The past is not a chain. It is a teacher. I do not carry it anymore." That night, he slept peacefully, without the usual storm of regrets. He didn't know it yet, but this act of letting go was not just cleansing. It was preparation, because only when the past is released can the future truly enter. Seedling Learning Corner. This part introduces the idea that memories can be chains or teachers. This is another metaphor, showing how our relationship with the past shapes our present. Notice the phrase piece by piece. He began destroying the contents of the box, not out of anger, but out of release. This demonstrates contrast. The physical act looks violent, but the meaning is peaceful. English often uses contrast to add depth. The sentence, "The past is not a chain. It is a teacher," is an example of parallelism again, using balance and rhythm to make the idea memorable. Speech balloon, your turn. What did Ethan find in the box under his bed? How did he change his relationship with those painful memories? If you had to write one sentence about your own past as a teacher, what would it be? For example, "My mistakes taught me patience." Part 6, the voice of doubt. The closer you walk to change, the louder the old chains rattle. For a few weeks, Ethan felt unstoppable. His mornings began with the mirror affirmations. His evenings ended with honest reflections in his notebook. His steps grew lighter, his shoulders stronger, his eyes clearer. But progress has a strange enemy: doubt. And doubt knows when to strike. It happened on a quiet afternoon in the bookstore. Ethan's boss, Mr. Gray, a bitter man with a permanent scowl, approached him. "You've been distracted lately," he said. "Less efficient. You're not management material, Ethan. Honestly, I don't think you'll ever rise beyond this counter." The words sliced through Ethan like a blade. He smiled weakly and nodded, but inside, the old voices roared awake. "See? He's right. You're still small. Nothing has really changed." That night, Ethan couldn't bring himself to stand in front of the mirror. His reflection looked ordinary again, weak, doubtful. His chest ached with disappointment. "Was I fooling myself all along?" he whispered. "Maybe I'll always be average." But then his eyes fell on the notebook, the pages full of battles fought and won. Slowly, he opened to a random page and read aloud, "I am capable. I deserve success. My future is bigger than my past." Something shifted. The words he had once written in desperation now stood like soldiers ready to defend him. Ethan realized something important. Doubt never truly disappears. It only changes shape. The more you rise, the more it tries to pull you down. But this time he wasn't helpless. He had weapons, his affirmations, his new mindset, his proof of change. He stood in front of the mirror once more. His voice shook at first, but then grew stronger. "Mr. Gray's words are not my truth. My life is not defined by his eyes. My future belongs to me." The reflection didn't laugh. This time it nodded. For the first time, Ethan understood. Success isn't about silencing doubt forever. It's about speaking louder than doubt, again and again, until your voice becomes the strongest one in the room. Seedling Learning Corner. This chapter shows how external voices, like Mr. Gray's criticism, can trigger internal doubt. In English, people often say, "cut like a blade," to describe words that feel painfully sharp. This is a simile, a comparison using like or as. The sentence "doubt never truly disappears. It only changes shape," is a powerful example of personification, where doubt is treated like a living creature that adapts. This makes abstract feelings easier to imagine. Another useful phrase is, "My life is not defined by his eyes." This is a poetic way to say that someone else's opinion does not control your value. Such expressions are common in motivational English. Speech balloon, your turn. What did Mr. Gray tell Ethan that almost broke his confidence? How did Ethan fight back against doubt? Can you create your own personification in English? For example, "Fear knocks at my door, but courage answers." Part 7, The Spark of Action. Thoughts shape reality, but only when they move from the mind into the world. Ethan's inner battles were slowly building a new foundation. But deep down, he knew thinking differently was not enough. To truly change his life, he needed action. The opportunity came unexpectedly. A young man entered the bookstore one evening, looking lost. "Do you have any books on starting a business?" he asked. Ethan remembered the woman who had asked a similar question weeks before. This time, instead of just suggesting a book, he started a conversation. "What kind of business are you dreaming of?" he asked. The man's eyes lit up. "A coffee shop. But honestly, I don't know where to begin. Everyone says it's impossible unless you already have money." Ethan felt a strange pull. He had once dreamed of creating something of his own, too. And now, standing here, he realized, why not start learning again? Why not take a small step? After the customer left, Ethan pulled out his phone and searched, "How to start a business with no money." Articles, videos, and free courses appeared. His heart raced. This was it, the bridge between thought and reality. That night, instead of scrolling aimlessly, he spent 2 hours watching tutorials and taking notes. It felt awkward at first, like stepping into unknown waters. But then excitement took over. By the end of the week, Ethan had filled pages with ideas. Simple online services he could offer, skills he could learn, small ways to start earning independently. It wasn't a business yet, but it was a spark. And sparks, when fed, can become fire. Standing before the mirror that Sunday, Ethan spoke with new power. "I am not just a dreamer. I am a doer. I take action." For the first time, he didn't feel like he was lying. Seedling Learning Corner. In this part, Ethan realizes that thoughts need action to transform reality. Notice the phrase, "the bridge between thought and reality." This is a metaphor showing that action is the connection between what we imagine and what we live. Another phrase, "sparks become fire," is a common idiomatic expression in English. It means that small beginnings can grow into something powerful if nurtured. Also, observe the shift in affirmations. Earlier, Ethan said things like, "I deserve success." Now he says, "I take action." This is a stronger statement because it focuses on identity and behavior, not just desire. Speech balloon, your turn. What new step did Ethan take after speaking with the customer? Why is action described as the bridge between thought and reality? Can you write your own sentence using the spark/fire metaphor? For example, one kind word can be a spark that lights someone's heart on fire. Part 8. The Storm of Failure. Before destiny tests you with victory, it tests you with failure. Fueled by his new spark, Ethan threw himself into action. He started waking up earlier, dedicating 1 hour every morning to learning business skills. He experimented with small projects online, designing simple logos, writing short articles, helping a friend with social media. At first, he felt unstoppable. His notebook filled with plans, his mirror declarations grew louder. "I am building something new," he told himself every day. But reality is never smooth. One week, a client promised to pay him for design work, but disappeared without sending money. Another time, a website he built crashed, erasing hours of effort. Each failure felt like a punch to the gut. The old voices returned, laughing cruelly. "See? This is why people like you never succeed. You're pretending. You're wasting time." Ethan almost gave up. For 2 days, he didn't touch his notebook. He skipped his mirror affirmations. He even thought of deleting all his files and pretending the attempt never happened. But on the third day, as he sat in silence, his eyes fell on a quote he had written weeks earlier. "My future is bigger than my past." The words burned in his chest. He realized failure wasn't proof he was small. Failure was proof he was moving. Only people who act can fail. The truly small are the ones who never try. So he stood in front of the mirror again. His voice was shaky, but fierce. "Failure is not my end. Failure is my teacher. Every mistake makes me stronger." From that day, Ethan stopped calling them failures. He called them lessons. The client who disappeared taught him to demand payment upfront. The broken website taught him the importance of backup. And with every lesson, the spark inside him grew into a flame. Seedling Learning Corner. This chapter introduces a key idea: failure as a teacher. In English, it's common to hear phrases like, "Failure is not the end, it's the beginning." This is both motivational and metaphorical, showing that mistakes are stepping stones. Notice how the narrative uses contrast. Ethan nearly quit, but then found strength in his own words. English storytelling often highlights the lowest point before the rise, making the transformation more powerful. The line, "Only people who act can fail," is a simple but striking example of truth expressed through paradox. An idea that seems contradictory at first but reveals wisdom when you think deeper. Speech balloon, your turn. Why did Ethan feel like giving up after his first failures? What did he learn about the true meaning of failure? Can you write your own motivational paradox in English? For example, "The fastest way to move forward is to slow down and learn." Part 9. The New Circle. If you want to rise, surround yourself with those who lift you. Ethan's flame was growing. His thoughts were changing, his actions multiplying, and his lessons shaping him into someone new. But soon he realized another truth: environment matters. His co-workers at the bookstore laughed when he spoke about his projects. "Business? You? Don't fool yourself," one sneered. His old friends invited him to hang out, to drink, to waste weekends on video games. When he said no, they rolled their eyes. "You've changed, man. Don't act like you're better than us." Their words stung, but deep down, Ethan knew. They weren't laughing at him. They were protecting their own comfort. His growth was a mirror showing them what they refused to do. That night, he wrote in his notebook, "I must choose my circle wisely. Some people water your flame. Some people blow it out." So he began searching for a new circle. Online communities of entrepreneurs, local meetups, podcasts filled with people who spoke about growth, discipline, and resilience. At first, it felt strange. He was silent in those groups, just listening. But little by little, he began asking questions. And to his surprise, people responded. They encouraged him. They shared their own failures. They celebrated his small wins. For the first time, Ethan felt he wasn't alone on the path. One mentor he met online told him something that changed his perspective. Success is not a solo climb. It's a team effort. Find people who are climbing their own mountains, and you'll rise together. Ethan began to see clearly. His environment had been a cage. Now it was becoming a ladder. Seedling Learning Corner. This part emphasizes the importance of environment and the people around us. Notice the metaphor. Some people water your flame, some people blow it out. This is a poetic way to say that people either encourage you or discourage you. The phrase success is not a solo climb. It's a team effort. Uses a mountain metaphor common in English motivational speech. Climbing a mountain represents growth, struggle, and eventual achievement. Also, observe the difference between cage and ladder as metaphors for environment. A cage traps you. A ladder helps you rise. Such contrasts make English storytelling vivid and memorable. Speech balloon, your turn. Why did Ethan's old friends laugh at him? What kind of people did he start surrounding himself with instead? Can you create your own metaphor for friendship? For example, a real friend is a lighthouse that guides you in the dark. Part 10. The Secret Unlocked. The world does not change when you achieve greatness. The world changes the moment you believe you can. Months passed. Ethan's life no longer resembled the gray, hopeless routine of the past. His notebook was filled with ideas. His mirror still echoed with declarations, and his small projects had begun earning him real income. But more than money, more than progress, Ethan had gained something greater: identity. One morning, as he stood in front of the mirror, he remembered the first time he had whispered, "I am not small." Back then, his voice had cracked with doubt. Now, his voice rang with certainty. "I am powerful. I create my reality. My thoughts shape my future." He felt it in his bones. Later that day, while walking through the city, Ethan noticed the same cafe where he had first met the old man. His heart quickened. He stepped inside, and there he was, sitting in the same corner, silver hair, book in hand. The old man looked up and smiled. "Ah," he said softly, "I see you've been listening." Ethan sat across from him, unable to hide his excitement. "You were right. My prison was my thoughts. Changing them changed everything. But tell me, what is the real secret to success?" The old man leaned forward, his eyes glowing. "The secret is simple, yet most never dare to live it. The world is a mirror of your mind. If you see yourself as small, the world will reflect smallness. If you see yourself as powerful, the world will open its doors. Success begins not with talent, not with luck, not with opportunity, but with belief. When you see yourself as who you truly are, nothing can stop you." Ethan felt tears rising. For the first time, he fully understood. He was not waiting for success to arrive. He was creating it every single day, one thought, one action, one choice at a time. The old man closed his book, stood up, and placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Remember, boy, thoughts become words. Words become actions. Actions become destiny. Guard your thoughts well. They are the architects of your life." With that, the old man left, vanishing into the street as mysteriously as he had appeared months ago. Ethan watched him go, a smile spreading across his face. He was no longer the prisoner of doubt, no longer the man who whispered lies to himself. He was the builder of his future, and so are you. Seedling Learning Corner. The story ends with the powerful truth. The world is a mirror of your mind. This is a metaphor showing how our inner beliefs shape our outer reality. Notice the sequence. Thoughts become words. Words become actions. Actions become destiny. This is an example of parallelism and also a cause and effect chain in English. Such structures are common in motivational speech because they are rhythmic and memorable. The sentence, "Guard your thoughts well, they are the architects of your life," uses another metaphor, thoughts as architects. Just like architects design buildings, thoughts design our future. Speech balloon, your turn. What final lesson did the old man give Ethan? How did Ethan's identity change from the beginning to the end of the story? If you had to write your own mirror affirmation today, what would it be? For example, "I see myself as strong, so my world reflects strength."